And the idea was we're going to do something that is interesting to every part of car culture. But it's also evolving and changing.
Yeah.
So we need to be a part of that as well.
Yep.
So
Yep.
where our mission statement used to be that we would collect, preserve, and present the history of the automobile, it's now the history and future of the automobile.
Hey, welcome to Car Guy Confessions, brought to you by ARP. I'm Jeff Smith. This is my car buddy Cam Benty and car builder Steve Strope, and we're going to tell you some stories. Welcome to another episode of Car Guy Confessions with Jeff Smith, Cam Benty, and we have a very special guest today, Terry Kargas, the executive director for the Peterson Museum. We're in your office. And this is really kind of fun, something a little bit different, but got a lot of great stories. So I'll just dive right in.
Well, the artwork alone is just amazing. Quite an office.
So you're telling us about this is Phil Hill.
Phil I'm a big fan of Phil, and was fortunate in to know him and his family, and my wife and Alma, his wife, are very close, and that's actually how I got together with him.
Really?
But had some really wonderful experiences, and I had a chance to ask a bunch of fanboy questions, things you wouldn't otherwise approach somebody on. But
sure.
And this is Phil's office chair.
Yeah.
Wow.
We'll get some
here.
pictures of all this. We'll get
Donated.
to show you all the stuff that's in here. Good chunks of it.
Yeah.
So many good
so
memories.
Thank you for inviting us here, because this has been a special deal. We filmed last night doing some things, and then here in your office, this is really kind of fun, because I could spend a day in here just getting all the stories behind every piece of memorabilia that's in here.
I love it in here.
This didn't come together in an afternoon. You didn't just start.
No, actually, that over the years I've been able to collect some little things, but it's just memorabilia and fun stuff that I like. As you can see, a big Porsche guy, but there's a bunch of Roush cars from my time there, and our Atlantic car. There's actually a Stevie Ray Vaughan poster that
Really?
At one point in my life,
Steve's missing out.
I actually produced and promoted 25 concerts.
Really?
For SeaWorld of San Diego, their 25th anniversary.
Wow.
And the show that I booked out of the 25 for myself was Stevie Ray, and had the Thunderbirds open for him. His brother Jimmy. That was
excellent.
stuck.
Yeah,
that was really fun.
So that kind of leads to the first question: is how do you get to how does the road lead to executive director of the Peterson Museum?
Because he's got a lot of background. I mean, you did sponsorships. We've talked about some things, and we'll get into some of the other details. But you've done so much, and the museum is a bird that needs to be fed. I mean, you have to keep a lot of things going in order to keep it to working. And you came from so many things. You came from racing and mechanical and all the other stuff, but you also are an amazing promoter, like we've talked about with Stevie Ray Vaughan and all these other things that all feed into that make the machine go. And that's amazing to me.
That's part of what has been such a pleasure here, is that I had 12 years of marketing and the theme park business. I was 4 years at Disneyland, 4 years at SeaWorld, and then 4 years at Marine World, Africa USA up in San Francisco. So I learned about, if you'll forgive the phrase, how to put butts in seats.
Yeah, sure.
And the old adage, empty seats don't sell popcorn. But I went from that because that was a daily grind. That was, in a daily business where every hour on the hour you got a message that said, here's the in-park count right now, here's what it was forecast to be, and here's what it was last year. And so every hour on the hour you're measured, and everyone in the park, all the management team is right there with you. But after 12 years of that, 7 days a week, you're going, okay, this is not enjoyable. This is not what I want to do.
Fun.
What do I want to do?
Yeah.
And it occurred to me, actually, I sat down one night and I said, okay, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. I don't have a clue of what I want to do. And I thought, all right, let's settle this. If you die tomorrow, what are you going to really be pissed off about having missed in your life?
Yeah.
And I thought, well, what would that be? And then it hit me that the only pictures I'd ever had in my offices for 12 years were race cars. And I remembered, then I flashed back to when I was 10 years old. Dad took us to the Torrey Pines road races, where the Torrey Pines golf course is right now.
There.
And I remember that the Castrol R in the air, the sounds of the cars. Phil Hill was there in a D-Jag. As researching later for a Gurney event that we did for Dan, found out that was his very first race in a TR3.
Wow.
And so, but leaving the show that day, I was in the back seat. Dad, we got to do this. We got to do this. And nothing ever sparked me like being at the track. We were at the first race at Riverside in '57.
Wow.
But growing up in Southern California, you got drag racing, you got road racing.
So much stuff going on.
Everything.
Yeah.
The Santa Barbara road races and the Palm Springs road races. And
there were road races at Pomona, too.
And in the streets.
Yeah.
But nothing ever interested me or made me feel alive like being in racing or at races, and that carried over. So when I came here, after I got that idea, then I said, okay, I've got to be in racing. Bought a race car, but found out that I was too slow, too old, and didn't have the money to do it the way I wanted to.
So there was a D-Sports racer?
Yeah. C-Sport racer.
C-Sports racer.
What kind of car?
It was an Alfa Porsche. But it was one of those things that, no, this is not what I want to do.
Sure.
I want to be working with the best in racing. So I decided, okay, what do I know how to sell sponsorships. So I started introducing myself to teams, and that's, money is what drives racing. Sure. and provides you. Funny story, I was at the Long Beach Grand Prix walking through the paddock one day, and I saw Roger Penske, and I said, Mr. Penske, I said, God, I got to tell you how I have always been impressed with the way you go racing. You've always been prepared. You've always had the proper amount, of funds to do it right. And he said, well, that shows how little you know about racing. I said, what do you mean? I said, there's never been enough money to do it right.
Right. And never enough time to prepare. Never enough time to prepare.
But it's been... So I've had a career in racing. I was at Roush for 12 years. We built a performance division.
What did you do at Roush? What was your capacity?
VP Sales and Marketing.
Okay.
So we built the performance division, and we were building hot rod Mustangs. We built about 15,000 while I was there.
Yeah.
Those were awesome.
Yes.
We built some good cars. I found out. I was in business with Billy Cord. We were building rear deck spoilers. And in Cerritos, and I found out, I got a call from Max Jones, who was a former driver and then ended up running the truck program for Jack and the Trans Am program. He was a West Coast boy, and he said, we're going to get into the aftermarket business. So I thought, they've got about 500 guys in engineering. They've got a massive racing program.
Sure.
No one in the aftermarket business has that much engineering and that much racing. He said, this will be the best.
Huge resources.
And I don't want them to do it without me.
The name is awesome.
Yeah.
Gap and Roush. Remember the Gap and Roush AMCs?
The Tijuana Taxi.
The Tijuana Taxi?
Yes.
So I attached myself to him. I told him, you're not going to do this without me. And I made a deal to get the Western States distribution rights for the products, which was one of the best and worst deals I've ever made because they didn't have any products. So, I'm setting up a shop. Any long story, I ended up 12 years there. We did wonderful product, great service, great product, well engineered. Cars were fast. Our motto, as people would leave the shop in their new cars, is drive fast, take chances.
Hey, we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP-bolts.com. We got a fantastic little backdrop here. They make an outstanding series of bolts, almost anything you would need for engines, chassis, things like that. In fact, we were at lunch today, and a guy asked you about the bolt on the back of your shirt, and and I said, well, it's really about a head bolt. They neck the stem down of the bolt on a small block Chevy head bolt, so the clamp load is even across 3 different head bolt lengths on a small block Chevy. And, so that's the kind of technology that you get out of ARP. And we've all got stories on all that stuff.
For a translation of what he said, call ARPbolts.com.
but the message is that you can't get any better than that.
No, you cannot.
There you go.
Nope.
Excellent.
And then just check them out at ARP-bolts.com. We'd like to thank our friends at InTheGarageMedia.com. They have 3 fantastic magazines. They've got Classic Truck Performance, they have Modern Rotting, and my favorite, All Chevy Performance with Nick, my buddy Nick,
you're
is
so
the editor.
biased.
So
Correct.
yes, of course.
Yes.
But they're doing print media, which is of course our favorite. So
Tangible
color and
magazine.
everything.
in color and everything, and you can get your car on the cover of one of those books, which is
Right.
a fun
that's a
deal.
lot.
Great
yeah.
tech,
great
written
tech.
by you
know,
and others
not always
that are
written by me, but yeah,
people.
yeah,
Not
yeah.
always written by me.
That's right.
Just
So
pick it
check
up and
them
read
out
it.
at InTheGarageMedia.com, and they're our friends, and they will thank you.
There you go. I think it's in the DMV test. It says drive fast. That's right.
We always
and,
have
and
fun.
don't like the seatbelt is a suggestion. So don't bother with that. Okay.
But I got a call from Bruce Meyer. Actually, Bruce Meyer called a friend in Monterey, Gordon McCall.
Okay.
And Bruce said, Gordon, we need a new director at the museum. Who should I call? And I said, well, call Terry. And I thought, oh, crap, I've known Terry 40 years. And he's known my brother 50 years.
Wow. Yeah.
So he gave me a call, and I talked to the board, and they brought me on.
Nice.
And
What year was so? That's you've
it
been
was
here 11 years.
11
now.
years.
Okay.
So it was in August. It was the first week of, the second week of August in 2012.
Got it.
Okay.
Because I came in, I was supposed to start Monday, but I couldn't wait. I came in Saturday, Sunday,
There you
Monday,
go.
Tuesday, Wednesday. We drove north to Pebble Beach for the show.
Awesome.
Sunday, I'm sitting in the Henry Ford 52 Barchetta, getting an award, and I'm sitting with a trophy in my lap. And I thought,
Wow.
that is pretty big, good gig.
This,
I mean, life's
this,
good.
this
Have
is
fun.
not this is not bad. So you initially came in what capacity? What was your
As
sales
the
and marketing?
executive director.
Oh, you were okay. So
Yeah.
you're executive director. Okay.
But it was one of those things that, given my career and the stuff that I've learned on the way, I remember the first several questions people would ask and decisions I had to make. I thought, we'll do that. We'll do that. We'll do that.
Nice.
And it was natural. It was like, okay, I got this.
Right. Well,
I
then you
know
got
what
the
to
right
do.
people making suggestions, and you're the guy to make it happen.
Yeah,
We had
yeah.
it was, I also have to say, there's no board of directors better than the Peterson board. It doesn't get
Really?
any better
Really?
in the
That's
automotive
great. That's
world.
good.
It doesn't know. I mean, it's Wolfgang Porsche is an honorary board member.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce really is the energy behind the museum. But David Sidoric has been here from day
Right.
one. Richard Varner, who's one of the brightest guys and most respected guys I know, is our chairman. But you know, Greg Penske is with us. Bobby Rahal.
Right.
Juan Gonzalez
So-
is a Charlie Nierberg. I mean, I can go on and on.
Quite the guest list.
Yes,
That's-
yes.
So, and Bruce has a collection here right now of some beautiful.
Breathtaking.
It's
Breathtaking.
It's stunning. It's interesting. You remember what's his name? The art director that we had at Motor Trend.
Tom Voorhees?
No, I'm sorry, but he was a good friend with McQueen, and he did a book about the D-Jag that's up there.
Uh-huh.
And driving, and he was shooting down from the top. And,
Yeah.
I'm blanking on this gentleman's name, but that car is so stunning. That Jag just knocks
You know
me
what's
over.
also special about it is that Tony Nancy did the leather,
That's what we
Really?
heard.
and
Yes.
Von Dutch did the dash.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so you got
So
McQueen,
there's-
Von Dutch, and Tony
You got the
Nancy.
hot rod
and-
connection
What a
right
group.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What a group.
Yeah.
It was-
Bill Claxton. That's
Bill
the
Claxton.
gentleman.
Okay.
Bill Claxton
Yeah,
was the art director,
yeah.
and Bill
Okay.
was a nice guy, and he
Yeah.
showed me all this. Do you know
I
Bill?
don't.
I'll have to show you some of the stuff that he did later on. But one of the things I wanted to mention at this point, which is we're Peterson guys. You know, he put food on our table for years, and we
many-
were counting. You were here
35
35 years.
Wow.
I started in '79 with Carcraft, and then with Hot Rod, and stayed with the company until they finally booted me out, and I became a freelancer. But and when I was a kid, I mean, this is the classic story. You know, I was a kid reading all the different magazines, East Coast books, West Coast books, and it became very clear and obvious to me, even at 12, 14 years old, that the quality was in the Peterson books. And so I went home to my mom and I said, "This is what I want to do. I want to write for one of these magazines." And nobody really believed it. You know, it was a pipe dream. You know, I worked for my grandfather at a gas station, and my family never tried to dissuade me, but neither did they encourage me. And had he not had that vision in 1948, I don't know what I'd be doing. I'd be doing something else and probably not enjoying life. And the reality, it sounds from everything you've told us already that there's a passion there, which is important, right?
It's interesting because what you just said about what would you be doing, that's so true for so many people in the industry.
Yeah.
He started SEMA.
Yeah.
He funded the NHRA. Wally worked for him.
Sure.
And then he gave him the money to go do it.
We knew Wally very well. I worked for NHRA before I worked for Hot Rod. I went to Hot Rod in 1980.
A wonderful guy. I mean, you can't run an organization like that and not make enemies. But I never figured. I was the editor of CarCraft, and my first editorial was.
What did you do?
I wrote this thing that said, "I'm sitting in this chair on the 5th floor." Now Wally was never the editor of CarCraft, but he was the first editor at Hot Rod.
Yes, he was.
And I said, there are ghosts in this office, right, of all the previous editors from CarCraft magazine. And then about 3 months later, the book comes out, and we're at Gainesville.
Wally's not dead.
No, and
Nice
so we're at Gainesville at the race, and I'm there with my publisher, and we walk into the little breakfast thing, and Wally's there with his entourage, and I'm walking by, and I see him, but I think, well, I'm going to interrupt him. He's having breakfast, and he grabs me by the arm and pulls me in and says, "I read your column the other night," and I thought, he knows who I am, which is shocking. I'm just a kid from Iowa.
Yeah.
And then number 2, he read my column, and he says, "I'm one of those ghosts too." And I was like, wow. I mean, and later, Dave McClellan's a good friend of mine. He's not really the voice of drag racing, but in my opinion, he is.
Yeah.
And
Was.
I told
recently
that
passed,
yes,
right.
And wonderful guy, just a fantastic guy, and his son Kevin and Michael and the whole family is just wonderful. And he told me, Dave said, he used to do that to everybody. So he had a wonderful. He had a connection with the people, and that was really important. But again, the passion's right there, So you have to enjoy every day here. I'm sure,
I do, but what I was going to refer to is you said, what would I be doing? Iskey was talking about that he had a little bitty shop.
I know where it is. It still has a ghost of the name still on the side.
Really,
on
Washington Boulevard?
Yes.
But he said this guy wanted to, wanted me to buy an ad, and I didn't. He took the pictures and he wrote the copy, and I'd usually sell stuff over the counter. All of a sudden, I'm getting orders from Ohio and Pennsylvania, and now I got a business that's booming,
a real business,
and it happened to so many, and they were all talking about how it almost immediately changed their lives because now you had production and you had volume and you had money, and you could do things, and how that led to sponsorships of in Wally's program at NHRA, but also how they used to go to the shops at night, the various shops in bench race. But also share ideas about how you make things work better. Anyway, fascinating.
You bet. So what's a day like here? When you're sitting behind the desk and you've got your staff and you've got the museum is running beautifully. I mean, by the way, we really. It's a shame that we have not been coming to the museum as often. He lives in Iowa. I have no excuse. But the situation is that the museum is so wonderful. I mean, this was when my wife worked for Gigi and Gigi Carlton, who's a good friend.
Mr. Peterson's personal secretary.
And we worked obviously there. We rarely went to the 20th floor. That was a rare occurrence.
I got one shot at that.
Well, I would go up there to get my wife down. So. but when I remember when this was coming together, and this was the May Company building, and he went through the whole deal. I mean, this honestly is what his vision was to have the traffic is good. You've got a lot of people that are coming through, and there are a lot of things to see. I mean, the McLaren exhibit is stunning. Bruce's area is awesome. You just have such a variety. The Tesla exhibit is amazing. I mean, that exploded view of the Tesla with. These are not simple. These are not simple displays.
No,
These are really amazing things that you just don't see anywhere else. And that's
Tesla
truly
might
amazing.
be the most elaborate exhibit that we've ever done. But
I can see.
Hats off to Tesla.
We should get a shot of that to make sure we display that.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
And
they had a number of people. I mean, a large number of people at Tesla helping to put this thing together because it's so complex. when we were doing the installation, they flew a crew of 12 Egyptians in who were specialists worldwide for installations. Because when you look at it, you can see how much heavy equipment and things are in there.
Wow.
It's amazing.
'Cause
Egyptians, I would've not
they're
thought,
heavy
yeah.
cars.
Huh.
But we did, when we transformed the museum, I mean,
Yes.
the museum opened in '94,
Right.
but really nothing changed for 20
Correct.
years
Correct.
That's true.
at all.
Yeah.
And that may have been
because
why
the,
it
because the
became,
first floor with all the dioramas
yes,
and
right.
everything,
Yeah.
and that was such an intensive thing that it had to stay that way
Right.
to justify to rationalize the thing.
But it killed them. I
Yeah.
mean,
Really?
it was,
Okay.
yeah, because there was nobody coming.
Right.
People, the majority of people would come once and then
see it,
there's
and
nothing,
that
was
it.
no
Okay.
reason to
Correct.
come back because nothing changed.
So from a business standpoint, it wasn't necessarily a good idea.
It was a horrible idea,
Okay.
but it was built by the Natural History Museum. The museum, Bob Peterson gave them the money to put his name on it, and he owned the building. So it opened as the Peterson by the Natural History Museum.
Okay.
He never got along with them.
No.
So 7 years later, he put up the funds, bought the bonds. I think he gave him $15 million initially, and then $25 million
Yeah.
later, and
Yeah.
took it as the Peterson, owned by the Peterson Foundation. And so it was in. What really happened was that Bruce Meyer turned 70 and said, "Things have got to change. Things have got to change."
Well,
and he
thanks to
started.
him,
That's
that's
when he
great.
really started to
Right.
get his
Right.
own museum really together.
Right.
And then decided we needed a new director here. He and
Peter?
David Sidoric went to
Okay.
Peter Mullen
Okay.
and said,
Right.
"Peter, you've got to come in. Here's a model of a new building design exterior that we want to do."
Right. Which is something we need to tell people because that's just not something that is obvious when you walk around in here and we show photos. The exterior is
It's pretty
so
dramatic.
remarkable.
Right.
It was so
just
funny.
jumps out at you.
It was so funny. I was watching some terrible TV show about some hole that was in giant Los Angeles that
I've
went
seen
to the
the promo
prehistoric.
video, yeah,
Did you see that whole deal?
Yeah, it's crazy.
But the Peterson is there. It is
In the background?
In the background, you can say,
that's the Peterson.
"That's the Peterson." It's the Los Angeles is in shambles, but that's the Peterson.
So the business model then becomes a matter of constant change, constant evolution.
When we redid the museum, well, first of all, remember the third floor was offices and a
Correct.
kiddie area that hadn't been touched in 20 years.
Right. Yes.
And the second floor had two big galleries.
Yes.
And then the diorama was on the first floor.
Right.
And my second day here, I was in the vault, and I was getting a tour, and I said, "Well, this was this car and this car and this car," and I'm going, "Oh my God!" And I'm looking at these cars and says, "Jesus,
This
look
should
at
be
this.
part of it.
This." And I thought, okay, we've got for visitors to come here, they get to see the diorama, and then they go to the second floor for two galleries, and that's it.
Yeah.
Right.
And then at that time, I was looking at 413 cars, and I'm thinking, these cars are sensational, and nobody gets to see them. In
Yeah,
fact,
yeah.
I was told, as I was getting the keys, you're going to get a lot of people who want to come and see the vault. It's a waste of your time. Forget it. And I
Really?
thought, wow.
Wow.
So I ran a test during Christmas. We made an announcement we're going to open the vault, and I thought, oh man, wait, we can't open the vault because it's dirty, it's dark, and And I thought, but wait, that's the idea.
Right.
It's the
It's
garage
the
behind
vault.
the
It's
The
scenes.
private collection.
We had people flying in from Ohio, from San
Really?
Francisco. I heard the vault is open. I can't believe it. So we thought, okay, this works.
This works.
Because it was an upcharge too,
Yeah.
a big upcharge.
Well, that's good.
And
Today it's what 25.
25 for
25
adults,
additional.
10 for kids.
Okay. Great.
But
Well worth it.
30% of everybody who comes to the museum now visits the vault.
I don't
So-
doubt it.
Yeah.
But it's right now 270 cars of every stripe, a Formula One collection, the best Ferraris
Yeah, that's where we
ever.
filmed was yesterday for the Formula One.
unbelievable
My favorite
hot
car is the
rods.
Max Balkowski car.
Oh, yeah, right.
I
The
love
old
that
Yeller,
thing.
yeah.
I
Old
love
Yeller.
that thing.
But yeah, there's 11 galleries in the museum now, and we change them every year.
That's
Every
awesome.
year.
So
Okay.
every time you come here, there's something new to see.
Right.
But it's also the way we do the exhibits, and we spend a lot of money, and it's
It shows.
coming up with an idea that is unique. And that was one of the first things we decided too,
Right.
11 years ago, is that if it can be unique and it can be interesting.
Right.
It can be educational. But if it's not interesting to a large audience, let's keep moving.
Right.
And it goes back into how do you reach an audience of car lovers
Right.
everywhere?
Sure.
And the idea was we're going to do something that is interesting to every part of car culture.
Okay.
So
Right.
and we'll
And I
work
can see
hard
that.
on
Is
that.
there a particular genre that seems to pull more people in?
Well, actually, great question. Yes. Lowriders is an absolute no-brainer.
Really? Really?
Right
Well-
now, 54% of the population in Los Angeles is Latino, and we'll have a major lowrider show. But it's not just cars; it's culture, it's art, it's all the other
Sure.
forms of
Sure.
lowrider culture. But hypercars has changed our world. We started with
Really?
a lowrider, a supercar exhibit, and that segued into a hypercar exhibit, and then we did hypercars point two.
Nice.
And what happened is that our demographics for 30 years have been, say, 35 to 65,
Sure.
18 to 35 now.
Wow, that's huge.
And what it did was it was so remarkable to find this because this was a real revelation. We had all I hear in here is that, oh, kids don't care about cars. Nobody cares about cars. The kids don't want to drive. The kids don't know nothing. Wait a minute.
That's not
We'd
true.
have 40 hypercars in here. Kids would walk in and say, they built 16 of those. They go 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds. That's about $1.3 million.
Right.
But
How
it's
can you
not as
not
good
be
as the
impressed?
Koenigsegg
Yeah.
Yes.
over here.
So they know.
They could
They
name
know.
everything about every car we have.
Really?
And it was
Wow.
amazing. That was a real wake-up call.
Sure.
And,
That's awesome.
But it really just said, yeah, kids care about cars. You just want to talk to them about the ones they are interested in.
yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
interested
Right.
in the new hypercars.
Sure.
That's right.
That's not a Dodge Neon or
Or the sprinkler heads on the
Yeah.
Batmobile. So how does that affect, is there anything you can tip your hand about that's coming up that people should be excited about, that something is,
well, the
know.
shows or the exhibits that we have right now will be here for a while.
okay.
The Tesla exhibit will be here through November, maybe a little bit longer because the interest is so strong.
Sure.
And in the Bruce Meyer Gallery is we've got essentially the crown jewels
Yes.
of the collection.
Stunning.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's an art exhibit in the Hammer Gallery on the first floor, but we just opened the 75 years of Porsche. And the unique thing about this, and this is something that hasn't really ever been done, is that the Porsche cars are there, but the story is not about the Porsches. It's about the people in America that made the brand famous.
Yeah.
Which
So-
is what this museum should focus on, because it's an American U.S. museum. I went to I was at Le Mans when they had their 70th anniversary of Porsche, and I think your cars are more significant. You not only have things like the Donahue Porsche, and you have other things that are just 904s and of that type, but you have the customizers, which I think is
Yeah.
something that people are not aware of. I've not ever seen that in one spot. That's not the case where I see those cars are really representative. Those are the hot rodders
Sure.
that have
Oh,
taken
yeah.
these cars and done some
then-
amazing
and then
things.
do something else with them.
Right. And love it or leave it. There's some that are like, well, I don't think I would have done that, but there's other that was like,
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
that's really a smart thing to do. So that to me made this exhibit unique.
It's one of the things that I grew up with Porsche. I mean, I was a kid from Newport Beach, and growing up, I
Sure.
think at one point in Orange County, 60% of all the Porsches ever built were there.
Wow.
And I think that's a real number. And in fact, I remember the very first time I saw my first Porsche Speedster, and that changed me. Okay, that's it. I've got to have that car.
Yep,
And eventually, I got one, but it was a knowing about Vashik in Redondo, and you could drive up and see the cars in the showroom, and these famous, iconic, 908s, 906s, and then famous cars that were racing back in those days. But John von Neumann, Max Hoffman, the guys who brought the cars and who visioned that, okay, build a Speedster. Give me this car. Give me and it was Scooter Patrick. I mean, in the 904, they entered 54 races and won 52 of them. I mean, it's so much fun though, and the history of what they did and how they did it, the gambles they made, the gambles they took, but they were dedicated and passionate about the brand. And then the other guys, Otis Chandler, Patrick Dempsey, Patrick Long, that you talk about the Customs, which is now really the Outlaws. The best one was in his family. His father and grandfather worked at Chick Iverson Volkswagen Porsche in Newport Beach.
Okay,
and it's an interesting. It's one of those stories that I really love because if you think about Porsche, Ferrari is Ferrari. There's a niche. Maserati, all of the great brands of the world are great cars. Porsche did, especially in Southern California and America, their motorsports program was so important, and they did such a great job for their customers.
Yeah.
They had the trucks with the parts there, and then Alwyn Springer was there with engine support.
We saw a book that that's about it.
Alwyn's amazing.
Amazing.
He was the modern day Vashik. He figured out how to make the engines live. And when you look at the Porsche's racing record, it was how stunning it was.
Right.
Remember that somebody had to build the engines, and that was Alwyn.
Okay.
That was an amazing guy.
A lot of pressure there.
Yeah, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Well, it's amazing. I mean, the collection is truly impressive. I mean, I like it's a mix. It's a real nice mix of a lot of different things. But any preference? I mean, obviously we don't want to say anything about. Maybe Bruce isn't your favorite collection, but we'll just say that Bruce, your favorite collection is Bruce. But if it's not Bruce, what would it be? Bruce's.
So we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP and ARP-bolts.com. And I mean, we all three build cars. We all work on this stuff. And
I tinker.
You tinker.
I tinker.
Yes, we all build.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of a really cool multiple purpose fastener for me because there's all the science and all the technology, which is bottomless. Trust me. Unbelievable amount of research that they put into these things.
Absolutely.
And on top of it, you get them out of the package, and they're absolutely beautiful. Which I've joked before, it's like jewelry for your car. And when
pre-oiled.
we're building when we're building a high end car, there isn't anything else going on it. It's part of the criteria for me to have them lining the engine bay, not just on the engine, everywhere.
Yeah. Right.
So you get all the strength, the durability, the reliability, and fantastic good looks.
Sure.
Kind of like Jeff here.
And without peer. Without peer. Anybody else
and you know what?
Or paired.
Without peer, there's nobody else that does what they do.
It is. So check them out at arp-bolts.com, and they can help you out.
Well,
collection.
That's actually a fun question because there are many favorites. Bruce, of course, has he just bought a car that was so near and dear, and it was so important that he was the one who got it because he's a close friend of the Gurneys, and he's got the winning Porsche 935 that was one of the two production-based cars that won Le Mans overall, the Whittington Brothers car.
I rode with Dale Whittington at Road Atlanta in 1981, and I thought I was going to die.
That had to be fun. That had to be fun.
So they said it was a 934 and a half. It was a Camel 934 and a half, and I sat in the makeshift seat holding with my left arm. They said, hold with your left arm onto the cage.
Onto the cage.
And it was with Dale Whittington, who had only had his license 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So I lived to tell about it. But yes.
Those guys were talented.
I know the car. I know the car, yes.
But a Testarossa, the Von Neumann Testarossa, he's got so many good cars. But he's got the first ever Cobra. I mean, he's got cars that one of the Briggs Cunningham Corvettes that he took of the 3 Corvettes.
Okay.
But on and on and on with Le Mans cars. He's got a Don Prudhomme dragster.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah.
It's so pretty. But he's got bikes and cars. It's for days, but they're all really unique and special. And then he just acquired the probably the most important or winningest Porsche that he found in Europe, one of the Brumos cars.
Oh,
that
wow.
that Peter Gregg and Hurley won so many races in.
Wow.
So then he buys the first ever Eagle Formula One car.
Wow.
Gurney's first ever 001
Wow.
Formula One cars, and he just got it.
Yeah.
This is a big deal. I mean, this is
One of one.
Yeah.
He's going to slip that in upstairs. He's going to drop that in.
We'll eventually talk him into it. Yeah.
I was at that Gurney dinner when Dan was there. Wasn't Shelby there too? Was he there? Was he still alive at that
We
time?
did well. I think there've probably been several here, but
Okay,
the one
but I
we
remember
did
one.
when Dan was alive here,
Yes.
Dan had already passed. No.
Shelby. Shelby had died.
Shelby was gone, but I think
Because we did a bunch of stuff
Dan
with
was here
Shelby.
because we went in. We had the Eagles, all of the Eagles in the
okay.
Motorsports Gallery.
Yeah.
And he wasn't with us much longer.
Yeah, he was a super
have
nice guy.
Fun Shelby story. He did the continuation cars.
Yes.
Called me up about
Yes.
their hot rod, and he says, "You want to drive?" I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
So I took a picture of my son sitting in the car, and then later I made a print for him. But so I asked my wife. I said, let's go for a ride. Out Simi Valley, and the engine quit. So get off this off ramp. Only about halfway up the off ramp, right? It's an uphill, and it's we ran out of steam, and it just stopped. And Hot Patrolman pulls up, and I'm thinking, I don't have any paperwork on this. I'm in so much trouble. And I get out of the car, and the patrolman walks up and goes, "That's a real Cobra." I went, "Not only is it a real Cobra, sir, but if you'll allow me to show you my card, this is Carol Shelby's car." He says, "We got to get this thing off the highway right now." He helped me push it up the hill.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then had my wife drive it as we're pushing it across the street into a gas station so I could get some savings.
great.
But
and we both won Rolexes
at the
at
Shelby
the Shelby
Slalom
Center deal. We
Series,
won.
yeah.
He won 80,
2 years in a row.
86, and I won 87.
87.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah.
So we do have and he was a wheeler dealer.
Yes, that he
Shelby?
was.
Yeah.
Just a little.
Just a little,
Just
yeah.
a little.
Peterson gave him $40 million for an engine program that he was
Really?
developing. And
Was it the aluminum
never
motor
went
deal
anywhere.
done? Oh, it never went anywhere. Okay.
Never went anywhere.
Weren't they doing the bullet thing too in Texas, where they're having the non-lead ammo?
Oh, that I'm not
Okay,
aware of.
that's another deal.
Harry Hibbler told me stories about Mr. Peterson would do unsecured loans to friends. That just was like,
and his
the
accountant
numbers were
told me-
just ridiculous.
He said his accountant told me, he said he loved Carol Shelby so much he would have given another 40 if he'd asked.
Don't tell
Shelby
him that.
was- Shelby
probably,
was
he'd
with
probably reincarnate.
For that
He was
amount of money.
with Peterson on his first date with Margie.
Oh, I did hear that.
He
Yes.
told him that night. He said, "I'm going to
fact,
marry that woman."
Really? Wow. Yeah. Well, and we talked about it last night. And again, we'll mention that we should have
We'll have Gigi on. We'll get Gigi.
We have to do an
Oh, she
interview
would
with her
love that. When
because
they talk about stories.
just a wonderful woman too.
Yeah.
Just
My
absolutely.
wife and I
fantastic.
stayed with them. She and gentleman Joe Schubeck. We stayed
Yeah.
at their home up in Vegas, and that was very, very, very nice. Very special.
Were you guys at the magazine or with the company when Peterson lit off a Top Fuel car on Sunset
I
and broke
think
the windows?
That was before us. I think
Was that
was
before
early.
us?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay,
I'm
so
pretty
next
sure.
year's our 30th anniversary.
Nice.
Yeah.
of the museum. I'm
Yeah.
going to light off a Top Fuel car
Whose
on
car?
Wilshire.
You got a card in mind?
We got a couple of cars.
Okay. Awesome.
One
Schubeck's car
may
would
be
be-
a modern
That would be
Have you
awesome.
seen the model out here on the desk?
Yes, I just saw it. I just saw it.
We ran that for the Winter Nationals with
With the
Mike
Peterson
Salinas.
Museum sponsorship on the side.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Outstanding.
And
That
we
was
made
awesome.
that might be one of the cars, and then we might Gentleman Joe may want to come over and light off his.
Sure.
too.
He was showing.
Absolutely.
I did a story on his whole start it yourself from the cockpit electrical drive system because we were joking. It says Gigi got tired of pushing it. He could go to the Cackle Fest and just do it himself because it would reverse and clear it out and then it would run it the other way. So it was a pretty amazing deal. So are you planning to do those kinds of events now? I mean, obviously you've got this great museum. You do a lot of things. You mentioned that you're going to Pebble Beach and you're going to have. You bring people in and you give them an unbelievable weekend to be in Pebble Beach with the Peterson.
We do over 100 events a year that we
Wow.
create.
Wow.
And then we have other events that others bring to us. But we've got as soon as Formula One was announced in Las Vegas, we put packages together for that. We've got
okay.
Yeah, that's going to be a big deal.
VIP program going
bet.
down to that. We've got a VIP program that we do at Pebble on the lawn on Sunday. We've got a banquet that we do Thursday night with a panel of designers. That is
Nice.
usually designers. We do a
Nice.
motorsports panel up there on Friday mornings. We show at the Quail, and then we always show it on Sunday at the lawn.
Wow.
That's just the week though. We're all over the we're doing
So
major
you
concours
you
all
have
over
this
the
sort of
country.
exterior view of museums as being stodgy and
Yeah.
conservative and very, very nothing going on.
Right.
This is exactly the opposite of that.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like
very
this
vital.
is a hub of activity all the time.
Day one, when I got here, I thought, okay, we're not going to run this as a museum.
Okay.
We're going to make noise and do things, and we don't have the luxury of having thousands of years of history in art or in bones or things like that. And
Right.
the industry is 150 years old, so. But it's also evolving and changing.
Yeah.
So we need to
Yeah.
be a part of that as well.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Where our mission statement used to be that we would collect, preserve, and present the history of the automobile, it's now the history and future
Yes.
of the automobile. And we'll touch 100,000 children this year.
Really?
And
Really?
various education programs and the things that we present. We've got a world class. We have the original Peterson archives are now 10 million film.
I wanted to ask you about that.
We know it well.
Yes, I
Yeah.
used to spend my God, hours and hours and hours going through stuff. So it is Is it downstairs?
It's
in the
here.
vault?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've got a full crew working on that. We have 45 people in education, which is
Wow.
all give to the community. So we want to be an important community asset.
Yeah.
For education and training and teaching.
Because those images are just, I mean, it is really the history of hot rodding
Yeah.
from the beginning of Hot Rod Magazine.
Yeah.
So there's an enormous amount of material there. I mean, I contributed a very small amount. You did. But
you
overall.
contributed a ton.
Overall, it's just, I mean,
Right.
it's staggering really to think about it because there's so much material there. One quick story, the guy that used to do who was the guy that did the illustrations, the see-through illustrations? I'm brain fading.
Ellefson,
No, for like no. Anyway, he calls me up one day. I was still at the magazine, and I wanted to do the mystery motor, and I heard there's pictures that Bob DeLevo took at Daytona that year. I think it was '63.
okay.
And I said, they're gone. And DeLevo told me the story that when all those engines blew up, right? So Chevrolet was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
He had shot all these photos. He had permission from Chevrolet to do this. Hot Rod was going to be this big expose on the engine, this big in-depth thing. And they said, we need all this stuff. And so even the proof sheets were gone. So they're numbered sequentially. They're just pages in a book, and they've all been. There was like 11 pages that were gone, and but there were some photos on the outer edges that they didn't take, and I found 3 or 4 images for him to allow him to do his job. And I have to apologize. I'm brain fading on his name. He's going to kill me, but anyway. It was that was a lot of fun, but those kinds of things, and when you start, as you know, we start doing research stories, especially for history things, and those are just so important, And
Are you digitizing everything? Is that what the plan
We've
is?
got 1.5 million digitized so far
Wow.
of the 10 million.
Okay.
But it's pretty good representation. It's about 10% of the collection.
Right.
So it's about $1 a frame though. So
it's expensive.
We've
That's a
spent
lot.
that much money as well,
Wow.
and
Wow.
it's a large staff to do it.
Yeah.
So, but over time, and in fact, I had a long meeting today with the guys. You'd say, what goes on in a day? I said, look, don't tell me we can't do this, and you don't have enough money or time or people. Tell me what it takes,
To get
and
it
then
done.
we'll get you the material and the money
And the
to go
resources.
do it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
long term, that as an example, the color are in these plastic folders. Well, that's deteriorating.
It deteriorates the film.
And
Yes,
the
it
film,
does.
The color will go away. Fortunately, the black and whites are in I can't remember what they call
Glassine
it.
envelopes.
Yeah.
Glassine envelopes.
So we're in good shape there, and we've got some time, I should say. But getting it, we've got I don't know, a couple thousand reels of film too. that we finally got a cold
Because-
storage unit
Because he was
together.
involved with film in the 60s.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember those
Yeah,
reels.
I every once in a while I'll see like one of those. It was a series. I forget what it was called, but it was voiceover was Lloyd Bridges, and
Yeah, he had some- he spent some money.
It was really good stuff. Really good stuff.
We used to
So-
go down there all the time, and there were a series of spiral-bound notebooks that were all the racing. Remember
all the races because they would
That
separate
was-
them out.
Yeah.
So you go down there and find a photo from the 1963 Indy 500. You know, just it's just fantastic. I mean, it's such a wealth of information there.
We're servicing a lot of people now too that call in. It's becoming better known
that's good.
now that the archives are really available.
Terrific.
So we spend a lot of time searching and getting folks the right photos for their.
Yeah,
So somebody could call in, say they were an old racer, and they wanted a
Yeah.
photo of their car. Somebody could do it. Oh, excellent.
that's great.
Well, and what's interesting is, what would you like somebody, just to get this point in here, what would you want somebody who has never been here to the Peterson to know about your museum that they should see? What are they going to see that they might not see anywhere else? What comes to mind for you that is something that sets the Peterson apart? It's kind of two questions, but
It really begins with the cars, with the exhibits. It's really all about the cars, and it's the gift is cars are really about stories. You can walk by the most beautiful Ferrari in the world, but if you didn't know
right.
the story behind it, it wouldn't be as interesting.
Car doesn't do anything until somebody does something with it.
And the stories that we tell, that's really part of the magic. And the 45 people we have in education, most of those are on the floors to be able to share with the stories and explain to people.
I saw that.
We saw a couple of them. That's
great.
And that's one of those unique parts that we get to do. But I think that you're going to learn something, but you'll be entertained.
Yeah.
And this goes back into the theme park business.
Sure.
Of if you can educate people and they won't come back.
Right.
If you educate them and entertain
'em.
they're gonna come back. And if you don't keep it fresh, if you don't show something new, there's no reason to come back.
Right.
So we work very hard at presenting cars in a way that tell a story, a unique story, and that's part of our challenge every day. Is all right. Now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You know, you've got Tesla, Porsche, McLaren.
Right.
What do you do for an encore? You know,
It's a tough
and
one.
How do you
That's
make it
a-
Well,
That's
interesting?
tough one.
if I had to answer that question, I would say great stories.
Yeah.
Great stories would be the way that you top all those things. You know, so-
When we opened the museum after the transformation, the Bruce Meyer Gallery, and this was Bruce's idea, was called like metallic. It's something metallic, but it was all silver cars, but they were the single most beautiful silver cars you've ever seen in life.
Okay.
The Hork from the Bob Lee collection
Okay.
up in Reno. The Corvette from the Corvette Museum. It was the original James Bond Aston, cars of that caliber.
Okay.
Nice.
And then the next one that we did in there was Seeing Red, which was all of the very best Ferraris ever built. The Niki Lauda 312,
Wow.
the California Spider, the best GTO in the world, in car after car. That was just, oh my God, what am I looking at here? And then 70th anniversary of Porsche. Wolfgang Porsche was in the building, and we met him, and we were standing on the stairs and looking over in the Mullen Gallery, Art of the Bugatti, which was 3 generations of Bugatti,
Sure.
the furniture, the art, the cars,
Wow. Oh, boy.
the
Wow.
sculpture, and all of it. And we said, we should do this for your 70th anniversary. And he turned to his guys and he said, let's do it. So, boom, the relationship
that
came
helps,
on.
doesn't it?
Yes. it helps.
Fun stuff. But
But it goes to a wide audience. You just mentioned furniture and artwork and everything, because some people aren't as enthusiastic about cars as we are. But there's stuff for them here too that people don't realize. You know, the Peterson Museum, automotive culture, yes, but automotive culture goes beyond just the cars. I mean, I can't imagine getting past the cars. But anyway, the bottom line is that there is so much more to do and see. And you've catered to the kids. There's an area for them to play so that the kids can be entertained, so the adults can go do some of their stuff too. So I think you've done a really nice job of creating a multi-touch environment for people to get a chance to look at.
Talk about something for everybody. It was opening night of the Lowrider exhibit, and right next to the Bugatti exhibit. And what happened, you couldn't have planned it, but it was, okay, this is perfect. Some of the guys that came to the Bugatti, to the Lowrider opening were in zoot suits. And they were in front of the Bugattis with their kids, and they're posing for the pictures, and it was, okay, they get that we appreciate their art. We appreciate their art as much as we appreciate Bugattis and their art. This was, everybody's on an equal plane in here, and everyone's appreciated.
And then you look at the paint jobs and the stuff, the work that goes into those cars. It's unbelievable.
That's right, the lowrider cars.
The lowrider cars.
They may not be to my taste, but you have to appreciate.
You
know, when they start scrolling through the chrome and they're doing all this, the paint work is unbelievable, and it's every part of the car. I mean, I don't know how many times you've painted the floorboard from the underside, but it's not been a particular area that I spend a lot of expertise on. But they do.
They do.
And they do an amazing. So
many of those cars are 5 years in the making.
Oh, yeah. I don't doubt.
And they're put together and owned by 3 or 4 families. You know.
Yeah.
Well, it shows.
Yeah.
It shows.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic.
This has been terrific. So. Anything that we missed? Anything you'd like to mention to our audience? Because I'm sure we're gonna have a lot of interest in what's going on here.
I think that if you get an opportunity to stop in, we've been voted world's best automotive museum twice in the last 5 years, and we're very proud of that. And for us, that means, okay, that's nice. We appreciate that, but now what are you going to do? And it's a matter of
that. Yeah.
That it's our challenge is to get better. Our challenge is always to get better and to better present things, tell more stories, and reach more children. We are looking at programs now on safe driving for kids. We've got teen build shops, but the idea that if you support the museum, you're supporting what we're going to be doing hopefully in the next 50 years, in the next 100 years, and the stories that we're going to tell about what the automotive industry is. And a lot of that will open the eyes of kids to say, wow, I could be in the automotive business as a writer, as a photographer, as a designer, as a tech. I could be in sales and marketing, or I could be in the archival library business. There's so many different jobs, and we're exposing kids to that. And
that's great. That's fantastic.
We work hard at it, and we appreciate it.
I think you're successful too.
Wow, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for helping us out. This has been a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you.
And
appreciate it very much.
Come to the Peterson Museum. I mean, that's as simple as that. But if you like what we're doing here, ring the bell. Thanks again to our friends at ARP-bolts.com. Right there.
That's our sales and marketing. You just did it. There you go.
Because they really help us out with this whole thing. So thanks again for watching, and just keep watching this, and we'll keep telling you stories.